Really good to see you. We're trying this timing of 1 o'clock, so hopefully that suits people, and it's a good time to be coming on and listening to one of these family talks. If this is the first time you're joining a family talk, these are Care Vision's family talks, and they're particularly aimed at parents of teenagers or grandparents of teenagers or people working with teenagers. But actually, the issues that we've been talking about go across the whole of the young people's children's lifespan. And today, actually, we may touch on all relationships and how they're affected. The title today is Trauma-Informed Parenting, Understanding and Applying PACE. And we'll hear a lot more about what we mean by that and what is PACE if you don't know about it. And we've got two excellent contributors to join us today, and they'll tell you a bit more about themselves in a minute. I'm Linda DeCasticker. I'm a public health doctor. I work with Care Visions, and I've been so enjoying these family talks, and I've learned a huge amount. So I hope you have too. As I've said in the other ones, I'm also a parent and a grandparent, and I just wish it had been easier when I was bringing up my children to get all of this great advice and support. It's great that some people have put their cameras on. It always helps us to feel we're part of something. If you've put your camera on, if you don't want to, that's equally fine. We've got the chat open, so please just put comments or questions in the chat. We'll try and make sure we've come back to them at the end if we've missed any, but we might pick some of them up as we go through. So I'm going to start first of all with you, Edwina. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
I can. Thank you, Linda, and hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Edwina Grant. I guess just a little bit about me. By core training, I'm an educational psychologist, but in actual fact, now I have a title, Dyadic Developmental Practitioner, Consultant and Trainer. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it, Linda?
It is.
And I can talk a little bit about what that means and how that relates to PACE. But I guess just to add a little bit personally, probably the most important things in my life is I'm a mum. And also, like you, I'm a nana. So these are things, particularly being a grandma and nana, make me smile a lot. So,
David? Oh, sorry. I'll go to David and then I'll come back to you, Edwina.
I'm David. I'm a supervising social worker with Care Visions. I think if you're joining from Care Visions, hello, and because I think you obviously know me, but if you're not from Care Visions, welcome as well. So I'm a supervising social worker in the fostering team, and I was really keen to be part of this one because I'm a big fan of PACE, and it'll be really good to get into that and to talk about it. But also I've been coming to the family talks and I've been really enjoying them. So it's really nice to be invited along to take part. And I know I'm also a huge supporter of Edwina in the work that she does. So I'm delighted to be part of this.
Great, thank you. So Edwina, just back to you. Say a bit more about how PACE was developed and how you got involved with it, and maybe touch on what do we mean in this context what do we mean by trauma in this context?
Okay, so I guess maybe first to say, and some people may know this already, so PACE is an acronym for the attitude that's a parenting and also a therapeutic attitude, and it's paceful, accepting, curious, and empathetic. How did this attitude come about? If we step back into the 1980s, a clinical psychologist, play therapist from Maine, Dan Hughes, was working with children who had experienced relational trauma. We might now call that developmental trauma. So these were kids who were fostered and adopted kids, and they were children who had experienced abuse and neglect in their early years, okay, particularly in the first 3, but maybe later than that too. And what he discovered was that the traditional way of working that he would have done, like one-on-one therapeutic support, actually didn't work for these kids. They either wouldn't come and see him, they came for a few sessions and then didn't come back, or alternatively, the little ones came in and wrecked his playroom. So he went and was thinking, okay, well, I either give up being a clinical psychologist and therapist. I need to get my head around what's going on here. Because with kids from healthy families, by that I mean families where children have felt loved and secure and been offered comfort and joy, I can work with those kids when there are specific difficulties in their lives, and quite successfully so. So he sort of went back to the drawing board. And in doing so, he drew on various theories. We'll come back to that. But what he really realized was that children who had experienced relational trauma hadn't had the experiences of love, sensitivity, and attunement that children in healthy families had. So he thought, I need to be offering that to these children. But actually, as a single man, but as a single woman, then it's unlikely these kids who are a bit scared of strangers anyway, because of their experience of adults, are actually going to want to come. So I'm going to bring into the room a safe adult, the foster carer, the adoptive parent. Now that would extend to residential workers and kinship carers too. And my plan will be to develop a relationship with the kid and with the parent, and also to help their relationship deepen and go back to being more, or go to being more securely attached. He called it dyadic developmental psychotherapy. Dyadic is very simple. It means that, and you'll all know this, children who've been harmed through relationships in their early years, it's relationships that are going to heal. And those relationships need, in a sense, to mimic is the wrong word, but they need to offer what should have been offered them earlier on. So hence dyadic. And also there needs to be some joy in parenting and looking after these kids who can be extremely challenging and try and push adults away because they're scared of relationships. So hence the dyadic, the developmental, and again, this will be familiar for folk. Children can be any actual age, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to their late teens and even early 20s. And although that's their actual age, if they've experienced early relational trauma, then it's possible that they're much, much younger socially and emotionally than they are in actual physical age. So, you know, I've worked with 15-year-olds who are, in many senses, under 5. They can't regulate themselves, they can't reflect, they can't play, they don't know how to share, they don't know how to cooperate, because all of those learnings come through a parent in a healthy family. Parent teaches you who you are and how to play and how to share and how to regulate yourself. A parent teaches your head and heart. So hence, psychotherapy is a therapy. So it's now dyadic developmental psychotherapy, and that has extended into practice, a practice model, and into parenting. So it's now dyadic developmental practice, psychotherapy and parenting.
Fantastic. I loved what you said.
Awful lot there.
I know you did, and we'll unpack it a bit, but I loved what you said, that if a child has been harmed or traumatized by relationships, it's relationships that will heal that trauma. And just to encourage you, the first 2 comments we've had in the chat come from somebody who's saying, I'm a mom of a traumatized teenager, and sounds like they have had a great deal of trauma through sexual abuse, county lines, police arrest. She's also a paediatric nurse and aware of PACE and has done some trauma-informed learning, and she's really looking forward to what you're going to say. And someone else saying, I'm a new foster carer and I'm really interested in this topic. So if anyone has watched, listened to things, there's things you can recommend to go and read or listen to over and above this, should be very should be very interested to hear about that. So that might come as we go through this. David, do you want to just come in on that same question about what is PACE and how have you both been involved with it and how have you used it?
I guess PACE for me has helped me help families that I work with in a way that I didn't think possible before, because it's about connection, not only with the child but also with the caregiver. It's care for the child and also care for the caregiver as well. That's what it does as a model. But PACE specifically, I think for me, acceptance and empathy are almost like your accident and emergency responses when someone's in distress, whether it's a child or an adult, whoever it is. Accepting someone else's experience, no matter if it's different from our own, and showing empathy for their experience is actually a really powerful way to offer psychological safety to someone. You can co-regulate their presenting needs, but also it's the power of validation. I can see this is really hard for you. This must be so tough. And so it's about, I think the main thing I learned through PACE is, I guess, perspective taking. And that's really hard to do, is like take on someone else's perspective, even though it's totally different from your own. Because maybe a typical parenting response would be to defend ourselves and not take on the child's experience. For example, if a child said to you, you never listened to me. And I know, being a parent of two teenage daughters, I failed to mention that at the start. We're going to be very angry with me. But so if the child was to say, you never listened to me, a typical or traditional parent response might be, what do you mean I never listened to you? We always listen to you. We give you all this time. We spent last night with you. We did it yesterday. What are you talking about? So we become defensive to the child's defensiveness. But if we were to respond with PACE, with acceptance and empathy, it could be something like, I'm sorry you feel I'm not listening to you. Could you please kind of talk to me about what that's about? Could we work that out together? So it's a different way of approaching things that can engage and connect with a child who's mistrusting of adults.
So maybe, David, we could step. Sorry, Linda.
No, come on.
You know what we didn't do, David, and actually that's me. I never, you have absolutely describing the attitude and how that goes into practice. What we didn't actually fully do is we named what it's PACE, it's playful, accepting, curious and empathetic, but maybe just a little bit about those individual words and how they hold together. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Because it does, the attitude of PACE, Dan Hughes named that acronym because it's actually so much of what children from birth need. So what children from birth need is a playful, open, engaged, warm parent who loves being with them. Not all of the time. Nobody likes being with a screaming baby or a toddler dysregulating. But you actually, when they look at them, they go, my goodness, you're amazing. You're amazing, okay?
Yeah.
And the child then takes that that sense the adult has of them as being special and lovable, likable. The child actually is wiring that into their body and brain. Now, that's not happened for these kids who've experienced relational trauma. Very often, nobody has really seen them and seen the specialness. Nobody has thought they were the best thing since sliced bread. So that's that open, engaged, light way of being. Not all the time, because we can all get cross. Acceptance. So acceptance, David described that beautifully. What we do is accept the inner world and experiences and feelings of these kids.
Yeah.
Again, just like you would in healthy parenting, when a baby or a toddler is crying, you're accepting that they're struggling. So it's acceptance of, and that's hard, as David said. So we can have children who say things like, I hate myself. I'm a bad kid. And the temptation would be in ordinary parenting to go, no, you're not. Well, that's not helpful, because that's actually how that child is experiencing themselves. And they're being really honest about how they feel. So no, they're not. No, you're not doesn't cut the mustard. It's children go, well, just don't believe me. Well, they'll just go, yes, I am. And you're not helping any. So you have to step into that inner experience, as David was describing, and go, it's really hard for you when you feel you're a bad kid. My goodness, that must be awful. Thank you for telling me. That's really brave. It's really brave to tell me that. So we can talk more about acceptance, and David will probably have more examples on that. The issue, though, here, and this is really important, acceptance does not extend to behaviour. So we have to evaluate children's behaviour, no matter what age, as safe or unsafe. And if it's not safe, then we need to be putting a boundary around it, even though that's really difficult for the kids. So acceptance, yes. Inner worlds, experiences, absolutely total acceptance, no matter how hard that can be to hear, but not behaviour. It's called the two hands of parenting. We could come back to that. And David demonstrated curiosity beautifully. It's about what you are looking to do as a parent or as a therapist in this model, is find out what it's like to be the child. So your questions around what it's like to be you. What's it like for you? And I say, you don't do, don't do that. Do you think I'm being mean? Because many of the kids that we work with have experienced adults being mean. So their automatic assumption is, you're being mean when you put a boundary around me. So we have to be curious about their experience and help them to talk about it. Ultimately, to hopefully ask them or want them to talk about what it was like being in the family where they've been abused or neglected or harmed. But we don't push that. We wait till children are ready to be able to talk about that. It's a very playful way of therapy and of parenting. And empathy is, as empathy says, we step in as much as we can to experience the feelings that the child is experiencing as our own. So if they're sad, yeah, we show sad. If they're angry, we acknowledge anger. It's quite loud empathy in pace, isn't it, David? It's loud empathy.
Yeah, I think it's really matching it calls matching the affect, but really matching the intensity and the emotion that the child expresses, not matching them in anger, but oh, you seem so angry, you're so frustrated with me. So it's matching the affect, because actually there's something about your voice that actually regulates, it's soothing, and actually, but you're still matching the intensity. So it's actually co-regulation, not only through pace as communication, but it's also the non-verbal communication, the tone of voice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a co-regulating way of being. And it's just such an effective way to connect with a kid that's given up on relationships, which is a really sad thought to have, that kids have grown to give up on relationships. And I guess perspective taking is about, well, no wonder children who have been they're biologically and behaviorally adapted to survive in a world without safe, nurturing relationships. No wonder they've learned to just cope on their own, and also no wonder they see the world very differently, and relationships and themselves very differently from kids who were raised on love and safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you used the phrase, Edwina, ordinary parenting and healthy families, but this approach must be applicable to all families. But with children or young people who've experienced trauma, is it being more intentional about that, being more aware of these different aspects?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we could talk different types of attachment if we like, but not too much. Securely attached children in families, they know they're loved. They have, as David said, they've been loved and cared for. So if you tell them off, as children need to be told off, they need boundaries to put around them. And they can accept that. They know that the safety and the boundaries are being put in place because they're loved. And so, yeah, in healthy pairing, where you grow up with your child, you know them, they know you, you sort of read them like a book. Then you can say things that are quite brusque at times. I mean, you wouldn't want to, but you know what I mean? You can go, stop it, quit it. And they'll quit it. Oh, they'll quit it. But if you adopt that same approach with children who are frightened of adults, basically, because adults have harmed them or neglected them, then you will get a massive reaction to that. Because what you're doing is tripping their trauma. You're tripping the previous relationships they had where adults were mean to them. So, yeah, it's a stretch into this type of parenting. The level of acceptance that's required in DDP in PACE is more than, I think it's good for all children, but it's more than would be needed or expected in what you might call ordinary parenting. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And it does show what a tough job it is for anybody who's who's caring for a child who's experienced this.
Absolutely. And you asked, I mean, well, we'll talk more about that. It applies to all relationships as well. I think we can be peaceful with each other too as adults.
And with ourselves in terms of
ourselves
of self-care. I remember attending a family talk a few months ago with David Riley, and David Riley spoke really kind of powerfully about self-compassion for ourselves. And he said something that which was really quite profound. He said that, we wouldn't often as adults, we wouldn't treat a dog the way we treat ourselves at times, in terms of lacking self-compassion for ourselves and self-care, looking after ourselves. We often neglect ourselves in a sense. I don't think that's too strong a word. I think we often do. We let our needs go when actually it's about, self-care, and the parenting task is so important.
Edwina, do you want to say a bit more about the research and the science and the evidence that lies behind PACE in supporting children?
Yes, I suppose going back to when Dan Hughes was trying to think about a different way of working with these kids who'd experienced developmental trauma, then the first base he went back to was attachment theory. And some people may know attachment theory, John Bowlby, way back in the 1950s. And John Bowlby knew then that early parenting provides a blueprint potentially for relationships through life. Okay. He did not have the neuroscience of that or as much of an understanding as developmental trauma as we do now, but he did know that the internal working model for relationships was there in the early years. He did also know, by the way, and this is really important, so even if you're a child that's experienced neglect and abuse, and your internal working model is, I'm a bad kid, I don't deserve care, I don't deserve love, that can change. Yeah. Very much so, that can change. That's what David does in therapeutic work. That's what I do in therapeutic work. But actually, the people who really do that work are foster carers, adoptive parents, residential workers. They're the folk that help that change come around in children's attitudes. So attachment theory was the first strand. And then there is a theory called intersubjectivity, which is the originator is the late Professor Colwyn Trevarthen from Edinburgh. And still people, I ask about intersubjectivity and people go, no, I've not heard of that. And it's so important. It's as important, if not more, than attachment theory. And intersubjectivity is about attachment's one way. A child attaches to a parent in the way that the parent parents them, so secure, insecure, disorganized. Intersubjectivity is about the experience between them, about the relationship. That's where the parent gets a sense of being special and loved and all of these things. It comes through an intersubjective experience. So I'm more a fan of intersubjectivity now than I am of attachment, actually. So that's the second strand. The third strand is the research we have on developmental trauma. There are people like Bessel van der Kolk. The Body Keeps the Score is a book he's written, which is really good. And he talks about the impact of not only developmental trauma, all trauma. Trauma is a relatively new concept, actually. So last 20, 30 years, so it's still quite newish. But it substantiates the impact of developmental trauma is substantiated. We know that children who've been abused, neglected, can be manipulative and challenging and distressed, and they lie and they steal and they do all these things to try and take control because they don't feel safe. And then the fourth strand is a hugely growing body of knowledge we have now. Either you would call neuroscience or interpersonal neurobiology. It's about how the relationship we have in our early years actually wires up our brain. The neurological wiring that we have, all of us has come from our early years and the relationship we had with our parents. But again, even if that wiring has been traumatized or faulty, it can change. Your brains recover from trauma, but it can take a long, long time. So those four theories, attachment, developmental trauma, intersubjectivity, and interpersonal neurobiology, all contribute to PACE and DDP. Yeah. Anything you want to add, David?
Yeah, I think neuroscience is a game changer for why a different approach is required, isn't it, for caring for children with relational trauma? Because like I said before, they're biologically and behaviourally adapted to survive in a world without relationships, essentially. So actually, their nervous system is adapted for self-protection and self-defense. So they've come to expect the John Balin, who's someone that works closely with Dan Hughes and has done a lot of books on the parenting brain. John Balin, they talked about your brain being a prediction machine. So based on your early experiences in terms of relationships, say if you had a good experience and your needs have been met, then you come to expect other relationships will be like that. Your needs will be met and you'll be safe. But for children who have had relational trauma and they've experienced fear and lack of safety, then actually they just come to expect that'll happen. You know, every relationship will be harmful. They can't be trusted, so you become self-reliant. So actually understanding that, and I guess PACE in some ways, you're sending an error signal to that predictor machine and saying, wait now, I'm different. I'm trying to connect with you. And I think the thing about neuroscience is telling us, the more we send an error signal to the child's prediction machine about relationships, then actually it can set new neural pathways where they can open up their brain to new experiences and new relationships. But also, I guess the neuroscience helps us also support caregivers, and because if you're caring for a child with blocked trust, and they keep rejecting your good care over and over again, then actually the caregiver's brain also goes into a self-protection mode, and actually the caregiver will possibly take the child to school or maybe feed them, take them to activities, but their heart is checked out. They've almost in some ways they've had to disconnect, and that's called block care. So it's similar to the child. The caregiver's own nervous system goes, wait, now I'm not safe. I need to protect myself here. And actually they go into block care. But the important message for caregivers in block care is that it's not their fault. It's their brain trying to keep them safe. It's not you're a bad person. And often people could feel shame and guilt and say, why can't I love this kid? Why can't I keep going? But actually it's their brain trying to keep them safe. And I guess in some sense, it's not all lost. If you're in block care, there's ways to help caregivers out of that. And I've found in the therapeutic work I'm doing with DDP and PACE is actually you can help people recover from block care. And it's about when the caregiver is not nourished by the reciprocal relationship with the child, then actually we offer that relationship where actually they feel validated, they feel co-regulated, and actually you're providing psychological safety for them in those moments, but also having good friends and family and looking after your own self-care. You can recover from it, but I think it's that you need the right support. I think you need the right help with that.
That's so encouraging that you can recover from that. And also what you were saying, Edwina and David, that the brain of a young person can recover from that trauma with
absolutely
the right support. Although it's not a quick fix in any way. It's a lot of hard work. There's two very interesting. Come in. We can come back to the questions.
A colleague of mine has she has fostered a number of children over many years. She has her own birth family. She and her husband have her own birth family of their 3 children, and she, I think let's call the son that I worked with in therapy, actually, and that she and her husband cared for and still do care for, even though he's in his 20s. Let's call him John. So she'd phoned me one day and we were just chatting, and I said, "How are you doing?" She said, "Brilliantly." She said, "My eldest daughter, birth daughter, she's been living abroad in South Africa and she's coming home." Okay. Great. She said, "My second daughter, hey, she's expecting a baby. I'm going to be a granny." And John, who is 20, okay, now, she said, John caught the bus for the first time himself. So that's how long it had taken him to start to catch up with what would be deemed as such ordinary tasks he might have been doing by the time he was 10. So it's really important, I think, to emphasize that it can be a long time to recovery. And I think parents and residential workers and carers can get really frustrated thinking, why is this not changing? And it really is about just recognizing the tiniest things that children start to do differently because they want to please you, because they're beginning to think, maybe I'm likable, maybe I'm lovable, maybe I can succeed. But it takes a long time for them to truly believe that that is the case. A long, long time. For some, a lifetime, I have to say.
Yeah.
But
not always.
That's a good example that you gave.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to take a couple of the questions. I know it's just interjecting, but I think that's quite nice to do that. That there was a question which is really interesting. Do you think that neurodiverse children sometimes don't fully understand a loving family relationship because of the sensory dysregulation? So they might show some of these same traits.
David, well, they do. Yes, they do. But it's so children who are neurodiverse, for example, on spectrum, with ADHD. So if you like, the behaviors that are associated with neurodiversity can really be similar to those of children who've experienced developmental trauma. Okay. But of course, there are children who are born on spectrum or who are born with ADHD and other neurodiverse issues as well. And they can still show those same behaviors. And really, if you think about it, it's because ADHD, autistic spectrum, create a barrier for children feeling safe in the world.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that some of the same behaviors are around. Is it a barrier to them experiencing love as a family? I would have said, no, it's not. No. No, we're born relationship. We're born relational, no matter whether, whether we're born with different challenges, we still look for love and we still need love and we can still accept love. So, but there can be challenges in the world, and that's for sure. David, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that was a really good answer to that, Edwina. Absolutely. Because I guess pace is, it's often a secure attachment with a non-verbal and verbal communication, isn't it? It's about communicating and unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And another question that you'll understand better than me, but out of interest, if relevant to today's talk, where might fawning sit within intersubjectivity? Does that make sense to you?
I don't know. No, I don't understand. Maybe that person could just
maybe just explain a bit more.
I don't know. Fawning.
Okay, well, come back to us and give us a bit more. But just on what you were talking about, David, there's a question: how can a carer address blocked care within the sibling group in a family of fostered birth and adopted children?
Okay. So would the block care be with the one child, but then there's more than one child?
I think that's what they're meaning, that, you might feel it for one child, but
and actually that is common. That is
absolutely
common. And it may be that would be and I guess there's different stages or different levels or different areas of block care. And that sounds like it could be child specific block care. And it might be that particular parent, caregiver, would need a bit of focused support with that particular child. I think that's probably where the focus of the therapeutic work would need to be, in order to offer that reciprocal supportive relationship with the caregiver when they're possibly not experiencing that with the child, so that they can help to recover. I mean, the other thing is how we were raised. Often the triggers that we have as a parent often lie in our own childhood. So how we were parented, when we're caring for a child and we're triggered by something, often it can be the links are there in our own attachment history. And actually the work is really powerful in just understanding that in a really supportive and caring way, in a non-judgmental way, because we've all got our triggers and our moments of kind of weakness where we don't handle things very well. But actually, if you spend a bit of time, offering yourself that self-compassion kind of reflection about what's going on for me, what's this about? Because sometimes the answers can maybe lie in our own experience of being parented.
So there's been a bit of clarification on that point that I think it was, which I didn't, it's come later since you tried to answer that, but just that it was the one child, how they felt about another child in the family.
See, right, okay.
So
that's very
supporting
common.
that.
Well, sometimes it's and I guess the probably the kind of solutions or answers to that would be trying to make sense of what's it like to be that kid, what's it like to be them, and what is their experience of the sibling. Because actually,
I think as well. Yeah.
Edwina, you come in.
Yeah, sorry, David. Did I cut you off? I didn't intend to.
No.
No, I think he was just finishing.
So I think it's very common for children who, again, have experienced these early years difficulties to consider that love or care is like a bag of sweeties. Like, once it's gone, it's gone. And they want their share and more of that bag of sweeties. So they don't understand that love and care are so expandable. So if they see one child getting what they experience as more care or love or something, they are very jealous of that because they think it should be yours. And actually, the kids will quite automatically, they're kids who 10 things in life, 9 go right, 1 goes wrong. And the one that goes wrong is the one they will focus on. And they will be jealous if they think that another child is getting more attention, more care than they are, then boy. Even though that may not be the case, the perception is that that child is getting more attention and love. So extremely jealous. And as David said, that's about conversations about that. That's really hard. If you think John gets more time and attention from me than you do, that must be so hard. It must mean that hey, I'm not doing a good job of letting you know that I love you in my heart. How am I going to let you know that I do love you as much as Jenny? How am I gonna do that? Because this is hard for you. Help me to understand. So it's about acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a lovely comment from somebody saying, I've fostered a young man, nearly 16, for the past 5 years. He's on the autistic spectrum with dyslexia and dyscalculia, and we use PACE all the time. And he also went on the bus alone for the first time a few months ago.
Oh, amazing.
Well done, him. Yeah.
And a nice point that she notices that he looks at their faces a lot to try and read what they're meaning and thinking.
Yes,
which is
absolutely. Yes.
And then just on the issue of intersubjectivity, I think maybe you could say a bit more about what actually that means, because it's not a term maybe most people have really heard before. It's maybe the person saying, maybe I misunderstood. It sounded like it was the parent's experience of feeling accepted by the child. But with past experience of deep mistrust, could the child continue to make adults feel they were accepted even if they weren't? So that was the fawning term. You know, can you trust that? If a child had not had a lot of trust in their lives.
So I'm still not fully getting my head around that. I guess I need to let me just go back a little bit into subjectivity and say that when a parent in a healthy family is experiencing that you are the best baby in the world, you know, not all the time, or you're the best child, and look at you, aren't you magnificent? I wonder when you're going to first walk. I wonder when you first talk. Then the parent is getting a great deal of joy from parenting, and parents need to have joy. There'll be huge challenges, even in healthy parenting. There are huge challenges, but there needs to be that joy as well as the challenge. So when the parent experiences joy and joy in the relationship, then the child experiences joy in the relationship. So that's the intersubjective connection. It's the parent and child's experience of the relationship together. You and me in the here and now. We're experiencing joy or experiencing sadness or experiencing being angry. It's that joining up that's really important. Is that making more sense?
That's really helpful.
And it's also about how the child learns about themselves and about relationships. And you know, there's a great there's good material out there with a parent staring at a child, and then the parent sticks their tongue out at the baby, and the baby copies the parent.
Right, absolutely. Imitation.
And that's the bit about us mirroring things, and actually the baby then learns that they can influence the parent, and then the parent can influence the child, and it's that connection where
it's the connection.
Yeah.
And through that connection, everything, through that intersubjective connection, children learn everything, absolutely everything. So a parent is their first friend, their first carer, their first teacher, their first boss when they get to be toddlers. So they experience, as David is saying, they experience themselves through that relationship. It's so important. So important.
That's really helpful. And
children can pretend. Yeah, the fawning, I don't know, is the fawning maybe about children who pretending. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. But there's maybe a sense that they don't really. And it's a way of controlling. Or I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I guess these sort of things are, again, all about control. And there's a will there to want to be sorry, or a will there to want to love. So it's they're saying that from their head, but their heart's not really in it yet.
Yeah. It's just a good word.
It's practicing. Yes.
Yeah.
And you talked, Edwina, about the two hands of parenting, that you accept the child, you accept their emotions, you can't always accept their behaviour. How do you manage that in pace? I'm sure, David, you've got something to say about that as well.
Yeah.
David, you get it.
Yeah, I guess when children don't trust in their own lovability and they don't trust the good intentions of their caregiver, pace parenting, which is something that Care Visions run. We run a Foundations for Attachment course, and we talk about the two hands of parenting. But first, I guess with Edwina talked about this earlier on, children with a secure attachment, when they get a consequence, they go, well, I'm not really happy about that, but actually they never doubt their parents' love. So they tend to experience that as unconditional love. So that develops into trust. But for children with relational trauma, then they don't trust that they're lovable. So we need to, and also consequences could actually be really triggering for them, because consequences will go right to the heart. It will almost go to their sense of self, which is also a very fragile sense of self. So we have to kind of take a step back. It's almost slowing things down to get there quicker with children with relational trauma. First, we have to connect. So there's a term in the two hands of parenting called connection with correction. So you have to focus on the child's inner experience first. I could see you were really angry today. That's why you did what you did. It's not okay to do what you did, but I could see you were really, really angry, and that's why you hit your friend, for example. So you need to do that first. You need to, it's almost like the Bruce Perry's 3 R's: the regulate, relate, and then reason. You have to do the steps first before you could get to the problem solving and getting to the limit on the behavior. You have to really slow it down, because if you go straight to dealing with the behavior, the child just internalizes that as well. See, you think I'm bad, everyone thinks I'm bad, and then there's no learning.
And then sometimes with these kids who still, there's lots of neurological connections to be made in their brains between their emotional brain, their limbic system, and the cortex. When they've dysregulated and done something challenging or dangerous, they actually don't remember they've done it. Their thinking brain actually disconnects. When they get scared, their thinking brain disconnects. So if you say, well, why did you kick the dog? And they'll go, I don't know. Or they didn't do it. So we still have to say, hey, it's not okay to kick the dog. And we need to figure out what we're going to do about that. But in the meantime, let's try figure out, why did you do that? Why did you do that? I don't know. Well, it's important we find out. So let's have a think about what might have happened there that you got so angry that you kicked the dog or you punched somebody or whatever. So you're looking for the meaning underneath the behavior, the need underneath the behavior, before you go thinking about the consequence. Okay. Does that make sense? So again, like David said, it's not the same as secure parenting, in the sense that children who know they're loved and cared for, they'll accept the consequence, and they probably wouldn't kick the dog in the first place. But these kids sometimes do. They often don't know why they did it. Often they don't know why they've done it. So we have to tell them. Part of the curiosity part of PACE is helping children to be curious about themselves. Because again, in a healthy family, children quite naturally become curious about themselves and about relationships and about events. They do that because their parents and their friends and, everybody around them is curious. But they lack curiosity because nobody's been curious with them. And besides, if you're too curious, you might find out the awful truth that they really are bad kids, is what they think. So they will resist that. So we have to teach them it's okay to be curious.
So, and also in order to be able to be curious, you actually need to be in a place of safety, in terms of, because actually to be curious, you have to use the upper region of your brain and your thinking brain. And actually, if you're too busy focused on survival, then actually you don't have time to be curious. That's a luxury, isn't it? It's a luxury to be
too busy being safe.
Yeah. So it's a bit like the three R's. You have to do the regulate, relate, and then the reasoning, because actually the child has to become back down to a place of regulation to be able to access their thinking brain.
Yeah, and I think so.
No, carry on.
Only to say there that I think it is so important in this model of, well, actually, it doesn't matter what model of practice. It's so important that the people who are looking after and loving and caring these kids and teaching these kids are offered support. It's so important. That actually is always the first base in terms of this DDP practice model, and where PACE is first offered, and it's offered to the parent or the teacher,
right,
because they're the ones that are healing brains, basically.
Yeah,
they heal
exactly.
brains.
Yeah,
they heal brains.
On that issue of, understanding why a child has behaved in a certain way, there's a question that, given it's sometimes difficult for children to know why they did anything, you gave that example. I don't know why I did it.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing to suggest possible reasons? Maybe you did it because you're angry.
Absolutely.
Or
Yes, but you have to be careful there. So you don't want to be giving an excuse. If they don't know, that's the curiosity, but we need to figure it out. So you can wonder, I wonder if you did that. Were you angry when you did that? I wonder, did you have big feelings about something? Because there can be lots of different reasons why, for example, kids lie or why kids steal. There can be lots of different reasons. And you need to figure out the particular reason, the particular need behind that behavior. So, for example, kids steal because for some kids, they're not convinced that they're going to be staying in their foster care placement and they'll get kicked out. So they start stealing to just make sure they've got the resources for when they are kicked out, even though they're told they're not going to be kicked out. That's if they've moved a lot around the system, they're constantly waiting to be moved. They could steal because they're jealous. Somebody else has got something and they haven't. There's different reasons. So yes, we can guess, but we just have to be careful we don't tell them you did that because that might not be right. Does that make sense? It's I wonder why you did that, not you did it because. And generally, if you get that wondering right, then children will acknowledge you've got it right. That it'll resonate with them. They'll go, oh, maybe. Oh, maybe.
Yeah, it'll seem authentic.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It'll seem authentic. Or maybe that's why it is. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. And you talked about the fact that foster carers, residential care workers, adoptive parents, others, they're healing brains, and you're training them in this way of thinking. But
we're
they will
neurosurgeons, Linda.
Well, exactly, I know, but probably more important than neurosurgeons, to be honest. But they will deal with a lot of other people, their friends, their relatives, their teachers, who won't see it that way. How do they approach that?
And I think that's, for me, if I'm working with a family and there's an extended family and friends, then I'm more than happy to come along and talk with them about how we work together and how we parent and why. There's lots of literature on PACE parenting, lots of literature. But that's really hard for, parents and carers when they get judged by their friends and family. Often friends and family, you've said they will stick with them until what happens is they see the challenging behavior and they disappear like water off a dike. Whoop, gone. When in actual fact, it's that time when they need that support. It's about explaining to people.
We've had nearly the hour now, And some people have had to leave early, but what they've said is how much they've enjoyed listening to you. And really positive responses. I can imagine how much in demand both of you are with your experience and your empathy and your knowledge and ability to connect. So I'm really grateful. But just, is there one last message you want to leave us with before I say something about future talks? Maybe
yeah,
that's
I guess
not fair.
the thing that I've learned is to show myself more compassion. And I think pace is a very helpful way to offer yourself that understanding. And I would like to leave that with everyone, that to consider
Yes,
self-compassion for themselves, and what you're doing is an amazing role, but actually it can be
absolutely.
really, really tough.
Yeah, I would agree. I suppose when I'm doing a presentation, I have a last PowerPoint slide. Excuse me, I've managed to hold back my cough for this
You
whole.
have very well.
It is, and it says, "I will discover." This is to the children. "I will discover the song in your heart when you have forgotten it." So the job we have is helping children. All of us have the job of helping children to discover the song and to keep singing it to them. Excuse me, I've got a cough.
Well, you've timed that very well, actually. We were worried because Edwina's got a bad cough that she would have to stop mid session, but she's coped very well to the end. But that's a lovely phrase. Do you want to just say it again? If you're in your last
I think
slide.
I'm not going to cough. "I will discover the song in your heart and sing it to you when you forget it." So some of the children we work with have not, or care for, have not got a song in their heart. Some have lost it because of trauma. So I'm going to help you discover it again.
Well, thank you both, and lots of thanks in the chat from people who've listened. I wanted just to tell you about when our next session is, which is the 24th of March, which is a Monday at 7 o'clock. If that's not such a good time as this lunchtime slot, it'd be really good if you give us a message at some point. What's the best time for you? But they are recorded, and you will be able to watch them. Even if you've been part of this and you want to try and remind yourself of things, or you haven't made it, you can watch them and record. And our next one is caring, is really what you were talking about, David, caring for yourself as a parent, breaking patterns and finding balance. And we've got a family therapist and author, Caroline Penny, who's going to speak to us about that. And you will get emails, and it's and please register for that, because that looks like a very good and useful talk as well. So again, to both of you, thank you. And for those who put in comments and questions, that was really helpful. There's just one that we didn't really answer. Someone saying lunchtime is a better time, so that's helpful to know, and we'll certainly remember that. Are there any books or articles you would suggest to read to support using PACE? I know we don't have long, but any
my goodness,
quickly, or can we put them?
There's so much, actually. So there's a really good, the DDP website, which is ddpnetwork.org, has so many resources on it for both parents, carers, and professionals. A lovely book by Kim Golding called Creating Loving Attachments. David, what have you got things that you would? There's so much.
But building the bonds of attachment.
Oh, of course.
Dan
Of course.
Dan's book. It's written in story form, but it's the story of a kind of wee girl's journey through from birth family to multiple placements. But then it talks about the when the parent Jackie brings in PACE and also works with a therapist. It's a lovely story. It's really, really amazing. But I would say, there's lots of things on YouTube. There's lots of things there as well.
So that was Building the Bond of Attachment. Who's the author?
Dan Hughes.
Dan Hughes. Okay.
Yes,
so Jeff Hughes our person who organises everything for us says, if both of you want to recommend any books or resources, then he will make sure that people that we can send it out when we send out the link. So that'd be really helpful if there's any more. And Moira said Edwina's most recent book. So you probably didn't want to advertise your own book, but that's Working with Relational Trauma in Children's Residential Care, a guide to using DDP. And that you'll get on Amazon. And it's by Kim Golding, George Thompson, and Edwina yourself, Edwina Grant. So hopefully people could find that, but we'll send that link out as well. Okay, so we've got to our time, and lots of very positive feedback, as I've told you, and people putting helpful links into the chat. So thank you both, and thanks to everyone who's contributed. That's been great. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.